Welcome to Anime Reviewed. Today we are going to cover the series named The Fruit of Grisaia. Make sure to give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel to see great shows from all over the world for free. Let's begin. The show starts with our main character, Kazami Yuuji, getting interviewed by an officer who fails to understand why he is moving into this city despite having no relatives or home here. Later, the head officer apologizes to him for holding him captive and states that he got a call from the Defense Ministry to release him. As he walks away, he gets greeted by a four-eyed girl who takes him on a ride. She drives him to Mihima Academy, and inside she introduces herself as Chizuru, the school's principal. He asks why the school is empty, and Chizuru tells him it's because only 6 students are admitted here. She takes him to the dorm, where he is introduced to Saki, a first year at the academy, who is in a maid outfit, claiming she helps around the place and works like a maid. The next day, he wakes up early for a jog, similar to how he spent his days living in the mountains. He remembers her maintaining 3 rules: run fast, hit hard, and read books, and her perfect balance of strictness and kindness. As he leaves his room, he meets the cheerful Amain and the shy one, Makina. Later, he walks in on another student, Michiru, rehearsing vocals, and she pretends to act calm to avoid embarrassment. Let's just say it doesn't go her way. In class, the principal asks the whereabouts of their 5th student, Sakaki, who hasn't been attending classes lately. In the evening, Kazami walks in on her sitting alone in the classroom, reading a book and introducing himself. When he approaches her, she pulls out a knife to keep him at bay. Later, when he returns to his room, he notices someone has broken into it. Inside, he finds Amain, who came to change clothes in his room since her room is on the 2nd floor. As she changes, she asks him if he has any siblings, and he replies that he had a sister, Kazuki, who died years ago. After she's left, Kazami wonders how she managed to break in despite him locking the door. Outside, we see her holding a lockpick as she reminisces about a bus accident that caused multiple casualties. Meanwhile, on the school rooftop, as Sakaki decides she will never accept Kazami in her life, Kazami gets a phone call informing him about his next job. The next day, he gets jumped by Sakaki again, who fails to stab him yet again and walks away. Later on school grounds, he notices Makina sleeping under a tree shade and decides to stay beside her. Makina wakes up and walks away without paying attention to him, so he decides to follow her. She is fond of catching fish, so he helps her capture one, and they both get along well. As they chatter, we see a flashback of Sakaki complaining to the principal about why a male student was enrolled in a girls' school. Worried about her safety, she looks up Kazami on the internet, but fails to find anything about him. Later, Kazami discusses Sakaki's aggression towards him with the principal, who tells him to take care of it independently. He also says he feels out of place here, but the principal tells him all the students here have some extreme circumstances that cannot be made public, hence, they hide their dark secrets by being here. Later, as he catches up with Makina and Amain, they notice a woman outside the premises greeting Kazami. The woman is Julia, who checks up on him and says something about changing Kazami's past. Before she leaves, she asks him to be careful with his work if he doesn't want his death to look like an accident. Back in class, Amain asks if she is Kazami's girlfriend, but he shakes it off by saying she is a colleague from his part-time job. While walking to his room, he gets jumped by Sakaki again, but tells her he is not a threat and that they should try and get along. With that, Kazami manages to break through the tough girl attitude of Sakaki for the first time. The next day, while returning from his morning jog, Kazami catches Amain lockpicking his door. She enters his room and settles comfortably, but Kazami casually walks in, embarrassing her, and acts like it's no big deal. Later on the school grounds, Kazami walks in on Michiru playing with a cat who seems to follow her everywhere she goes. She asks for advice on how to get rid of the cat because she can't keep it in the dorm, and Kazami tells her that cats dislike the fragrance of citrus. She confesses to using grapefruit-scented shampoo, and Kazami instructs her to dangle her hair in front of the cat to shoo her away. The cat rushes away as she had desired, and she turns away, hiding her anguish for losing a companion. Later, Amain injures herself while playing baseball, and Kazami picks her up and takes her to the infirmary. Amain thanks him for being kind to her and says she expected him to drop her off and leave, but he stayed and took care of her, which surprised her. As he walks off, Amain stops him and asks him to be her boyfriend. When he refuses, she persuades him to accept her as his big sister and pats him on the head. The next day, she brings him food and feeds him herself, and Kazami recalls his days living with his master, unsure if he deserves a stable life like this one. The next day, he comes across Michiru during his morning jog, who seems astonished by the scale of the ocean. Just then, the cat from earlier appears, and Kazami figures she came here to see it. While they converse, Michiru asks what happens to people when they die, and he replies that it is similar to sleeping, but you never wake up from it. She says she wants to be buried beside the ocean when she dies since it seems so peaceful around here. At night, he discusses this with the other students, who all claim that Michiru sometimes becomes a completely different person. The next day, he finds her sitting along the seashore and notices that her behavior has changed completely. He asks her who she is, but she tells him not to worry about it and recalls how he told her that dying is like sleeping but never waking up again. She asks him what would happen if someone were to wake up from that permanent sleep, but Kazami fails to understand her purpose and decides to head back. However, she stops and kisses him before switching back to the original Michiru, who is furious about why Kazami was so close to her. Later, she asks him about what happened before, and he tells her that she tried to get close to him. She asks him to demonstrate, but when he does so, she runs off in embarrassment. Outside, we see her taking some pills when the cat approaches her, and she angrily shoos her off. However, she looks for her as she feels bad when she runs into Kazami again. Together, they head to the usual spot but cannot find it anywhere. Kazami suggests they head home as the cat will return in the morning, but on the way, he notices something and asks her to leave without him. Just then, he sees the cat covered in blood, taking its final breaths, and Michiru arrives there too. As a last-ditch effort, he stops a taxi to take it to a hospital, but the cat passes away in Michiru's arms, bursting into tears. The next day, Kazami meets her on the rooftop and asks her what happened to the real Michiru. She says that her real self has decided never to emerge again, and Kazami should stop bothering her. At night, Saki visits Kazami and gives her a box she received from Michiru a few days ago. She was told never to give back to her and never to talk about it in front of her. She didn't force it open, thinking it would harm the object inside the box, so Kazami asks her to leave it with him. Later, he visits Michiru to discuss the content inside the box, an exchange journal with the other Michiru which reveals that she underwent a heart transplant, and she's been sharing consciousness with the heart's owner ever since. She says she convinced her to return as it is her body, but she refused. He asks her what she thinks, and she says that she wants Michiru to take over and live her life. Upon hearing this, he forces her to take the pills Michiru was eating to keep her other self in check, and asks the real one to come out. He asks what she wants from life, and she says she just wants to die because she can't face losing anyone else. Kazami respects her wishes and says he will kill her so she doesn't have to suffer anymore. At night, he puts her in a coffin and buries her in her favorite place beside the ocean as she wished. Inside, she recalls her best friend committing suicide and her having a heart attack as a result of that. After being faced with pending doom, she realizes that she must live in the memory of those she has lost and breaks free from the coffin. Kazami pulls her out and says he knew she didn't want to die, so he waited 3 days for her to come out on her own terms. She hugs him tightly and thanks him for making her realize the importance of one's life. He carries her on his back and drives her to the residence of the other Michiru so she can meet her parents one last time and get closure. Sometime later, Julia discusses Sakaki's condition with her father, who tells her to get his guy Kazami on her case and send her back home. It is revealed that Kazami was ordered to act as Sakaki's bodyguard as she is a prime target for many parties. Hence, he has followed her everywhere she goes. She sits to draw a landscape, but it starts to rain, forcing her to run back to the dorm. However, 3 men in black surround her, and Kazami is forced to defend her as ordered. He takes them down easily, and they both hide under a bridge, where she hugs him and tells him how scared she is for her life. She reveals how her mother became weak after having her and could not bear another child as an heir to her father. As a result, she was thrown into a hospital where she was all alone, and Sakaki became a gossip for everyone around her. She was heartbroken when her mother told her she wished for her to be a boy, and ever since, she has hated who she is. Her stepmother gave birth to a boy, and her mother committed suicide as she couldn't bear the pain. However, her brother died too, and she was brought back and raised to become the new heir. She became a chinwag everywhere she went, and due to her growing frustration, she slashed a classmate with a box cutter after she tried to make fun of her. She reveals that her father is the owner of Mahama Academy, who made it only to hide her from the outer world. Her father is informed about Sakaki's intrusion and orders the principal to expel him from the school. Later, Sakaki is notified that she will have to study overseas or Kazami will be evicted from the academy, so she locks herself in her room. Her father visits the academy to collect her, and she comes out of her room to face him head-on. As the guards approach her, she pulls out a gun and fires it to keep them at bay. By the evening, the whole school is surrounded by special forces, and students have taken refuge inside the dorm. Her father approaches her and asks her to return, but she accidentally shoots him in the shoulder. Seeing her run out of bullets, the police march in, but she pulls out a grenade, stopping them in their tracks. She pulls its trigger, which causes an explosion, and her father rushes in to check up on her. He finds blood splatter on the walls, followed by her dead daughter on the floor. A while later, he hands Kazami a letter found in Sakaki's room, which states her wish for the academy to remain open even after her death. He further says how he regrets his ways and is proud that he had a courageous daughter. As he walks off, saying he will become a better man, we see Sakaki, alive and well, listening to her father from hiding. His new stance gives her the closure she needed, and she thanks Kazami for helping her. Later, it is revealed that it was all planned by Julia down to the very last detail, who hands her a family registry so she can start a new life. What secrets do the other students hold? What is the role of Kazami in all this? Let's find out in the next episode. For now, leave us a like and subscribe to our channel for similar content.